People buy cars for different reasons. This car was a plan by Honda to move units. They were bleeding and they needed to stop the bleeding. And love or hate this car, it's worked. And we need to talk about three camps, because there are three general categories we can put a Honda Prologue buyer in. This is a regular person. Owners of this car wanted the early adopter feel, but didn't want to brag about it. This is also a regular person. They did the research, watched the videos, read the reviews, and went to the dealership and got a healthy discount. And I'll admit it, if no one ever saw me driving it, or wouldn't ever see me getting in or out of it, my last one was pure perfection. But since I can't avoid people seeing me get in or out of it, and we live in the worst timeline,
some of the things that I say will be incorrect.
Nobody's gonna bat 1,000.
I had to find an alternative, and I went with my brand loyalty. Well, first I tried to go sustainable, but that turned out to be so scammable, so I ran towards brand loyalty when it was time to run away. Also, since I've owned one of these, and they both behaved, at least to me, like this, I'm cool with the fact that my car is an imposter and actually this. And if you go with one, brand loyalty could be the reason for you as well. Or it's the cheapest one of these with the lowest monthly payment. And then there's the third camp. What's the alternative to that? Anything but that. Here's what I'm going to cover today. We've got some tips and tricks, everything from the navigation system to winter charging and more. I'll answer your comments directly. I've got a complete guide on how to optimize your road trips and DC charging with every brand, including Iona. I'll revisit my list of goods and bads and break down my experience with the car so far, and I'll be interviewing Tony once again to get his perspective, and much more. If you've owned a Prologue for a while, a majority of your ownership probably looks like this. But it's winter now, and there are a lot of differences between that and this. Driving conditions aside, you've probably formed some opinions about it. And I have mine as well, along with a whole bunch of feedback from you guys. And this isn't my first Prologue video. In fact, I have a whole playlist. I encourage you to check it out after you've watched this one. For example, most recently, I did a full infotainment walkthrough. If you own this car or you're just more curious about how it works, this is a must-watch. And of course, I had to reach out to another Prologue owner for this video, so Tony and I decided to meet halfway again and talk about our Prologue experiences. January 25th was the day we did it, and it was cold. But there's a supercharger in my neighborhood right near where I live. So I decided to stop in and find out just how fast it's going. And it wasn't fast. I'm sure many of you have had that experience. I've got one here with, why do they throttle you at a certain point? Doesn't seem fair. It's the battery, not the charger. The car makes those decisions most of the time, but admittedly not all of the time. So for an EV to run efficiently when it's cold, first it needs to heat up the battery. And on top of that, at the same time, there is higher internal resistance because of the cold itself. That's your double whammy. But we still need to talk about how that conversation takes place. Well, the battery is a person, and the charge port, let's say, is a person, and the charger is also a person. And these three people are having a conversation, and the only thing they're talking about is how much should I ask for and how much should I provide as far as power. The battery says, I would like 18 kilowatts, please. And the supercharger says, no problem, I've got 18 kilowatts for you. The charge port, meanwhile, has another temperature sensor that says, everything's cool here, you guys should just do whatever you're doing. Now, when it gets hot, that's when that charge port or the adapter or whatever other passive sensors are sending information, they're going to say, hey, wait a minute, this might be too hot, we need to slow down. Well, in this case, it's obviously not too hot, but the battery says I can only take 18 kilowatts right now, and the charger says I'm happy to provide that. That's basically how the conversation works in the cold. Now, in the hot, there's a whole bunch more talking going on. Hey, are you optimal temperature? Yeah, I'm right here. I'm at 82 degrees. Send me as much current as you possibly can. And the charger says, great, I'm operating optimally as well. I can send that maximum amount you're asking for. Now, the maximum amount in the Prologue is never really going to be a problem for any charger, because this is a low voltage Ultium platform car, meaning everything's limited by the voltage. And there's a 150 kilowatt cap at the top. But once again, it's all of these things having a conversation with each other, deciding what the best possible alternative is at the current time. And at the current time, it's 9 degrees outside and my battery is cold. So the battery doesn't want very much, and the supercharger's cold too. It could also be throttled, but most likely it's the battery saying, hey, I am not warm enough to take a whole bunch of current right now. I need to be between 70 and 90 degrees in order to get optimal charging speeds. And that's the truth. 70 to 90 degrees is where you're going to get your optimal charging speeds. And obviously it's 9 outside and I didn't hit the button. So when you're out and driving and it's cold, make sure you do the fast charge prep. That will use the HVAC system inside the battery pump to increase the temperature. It may not make it perfect, but there's a better chance you'll get faster speeds. But back to the original question, how about I answer 20 to 80% for every charger? We'll dive extremely deep later in the video. Stick around. What do I do because the Tesla stations are not showing up? There's a chance you haven't listed your Prologue as a Blazer EV in the Tesla app. I have an entire video dedicated to showing you how to do that with complete steps and processes. Check it out below. Wow, that's a bit sobering. 20 cents per mile with gasoline at $3 a gallon. That's like getting 15 miles per gallon. Let me show you what he's talking about, allowing us to get our cumulative actual total. And in the comment, he continues to do a bunch of math, and he can forget about saving money on road trips. In my response, yes, at the most expensive charger, at 75 miles per hour, a BEV is the same as gas. This was an example of minimum efficiency at maximum cost. Tesla has a plan you can pay monthly to reduce the cost of a supercharger. Tesla superchargers, at least in my area of the country, are the most expensive option, right with Electrify America. There are dozens of options that are cheaper. And remember, if you charge at home, you pay your home charging rates. Also, my commenter didn't realize that I got the first basically 3 years of driving on DC fast chargers for free from EVgo or ChargePoint. If you don't know how to use your EVgo credits at ChargePoint, I made a whole video. You can check it out. And in the event you want your navigation system to make all your trips automatically free, let's go to settings. All right, EV payment filters. EVgo, ChargePoint, and other than a few supercharging sessions, amounting to right around maybe $100 total, I haven't paid to fuel my Prologue on a road trip at all. Planning saves you money. Drive fast and max out convenience, you're gonna pay more. Such is life. And not everybody feels the same way about the cost of charging. Loved this content even more so since I disagree with Adam on a couple things. First, I think the price sensitivity is only worth so much, sitting for 45 minutes at 62 kilowatts versus 15 minutes at Iona to save $5 just doesn't make sense from a time to money experience for most drivers. Secondly, pricing for DC fast charging needs to make sense. I'd argue that part of EA's problems for years, they were cavalier about operating costs to the point they just gave away free electricity for days or weeks. Now that they care about survival, they're priced more appropriately. Great feedback. I stop once an hour or so on long trips and charge for 5 minutes or so each time. Takes longer, but keeps my battery between 40 and 60%. This is habitual behavior formed by living in a charging desert, but has served me well. Some stops I don't get much energy, but it's cheap. Some stops I get a bunch of energy at a high cost, but since I don't run the battery low, none of them are super fast anyway. It's a choice. But if you agree with my commenter instead of me and you just want to get there as quickly as possible, I'm going to break down exactly how to do that later in the video. My first impression of becoming an EV owner: you've got to be a freaking mathematician to own an EV. I love the Prologue's looks. We'll see about my ownership. And since we're talking about ownership, let's switch over to Tony in my interview with him about our experiences after 6 months. We're at the Trattoria. Help me out. La Trattoria. There we go. I knew he would nail it. Tony is back. We're back with the Prologues. There's a lot to talk about. First of all, we've covered a lot here on the channel. You helped me very immensely on the original video. People seem to like it. They seem to have learned a lot. And what I wanted to come back and do this time is we got to talk about cold weather. So we are here in Hagerstown, which technically is halfway between, but I think you drove further.
Yeah, so I had avoid tolls.
Okay.
I'm used to not avoiding tolls. I forgot to turn it off, so it threw me an extra 70, 80 miles out of my way. I should have come down 76 to 81, just keep going that angle like you said. However, I will be taking probably 81 all the way back just because I'll be shooting past so that I get the Iona charger later on.
So he's going to be heading to the Iona charger, and that'll be later in the video. Stay tuned for that. Talk to me about those road trips you did in between now and then, because we're what, 6 months for you?
Yeah,
that's a milestone, right? We made it 6 months.
And about 6,100 miles.
No blank screens, no bankruptcies. So, this is great for us.
Just the one blank screen, just the one.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we were driving down to Virginia trying to find an EVgo station, and it was getting ready to put me on 95, and all of a sudden, both the driver and the infotainment center went black.
Oh, wow. So you lost it all?
For about maybe 60 to 75 seconds.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit more.
Enough to be scary.
Yeah, but the car still drove.
Right.
But
they're always separate modules, but it's scary.
It's scary because you don't know, now is the car going to shut down.
Right. Let's get to today. Regardless of how far we drove, both of us decided to take
different steps as far as charging, right? So tell me about your first charging experience.
So it routed me. I thought it was going to a EA station in Emmitsburg. I ended up at the rest stop in Emmitsburg. It was ChargePoint.
Okay.
It was supposed to be 125 kilowatt, fast charge max. I pulled in. There are two separate cabinets. What I didn't know until Adam told me, they're actually shared. There was a Mach-E in there already charging. I plug in. I got 22 kilowatts.
That was it.
That was it. It wanted me to get to 46%, but they unplugged. It immediately went to 60. So crab fries.
Crab fries. Yeah, we're dining in. We would love to do these out with the car, but it's 27 degrees in the sunshine. So you enjoy your fries. So my charging experience was similar in the fact that we were both at Potomac Edison EV branded ChargePoint chargers. Now I'm at the Friendsville charger, which if you watch this channel, you've seen it before. I did not route plan at all. I just put the address in and hit go. And it told me to go to Frostburg, which I've been to Frostburg, and it's a corner and it's not fun, and I wouldn't recommend it. My recommendation is that if you know a charger on a route, because by the time you own your car a little bit, you'll know where some of the charging is, especially near you. 30, 40 miles away, by the time you get that far away, it makes sense to put some more energy in. Like, it's not going to hurt you, especially if they're slow chargers anyway, like the experiences we had. Mine was 38 kilowatts. That was the maximum I got. Wasn't getting a lot, but because I stopped at Friendsville, I waited like it was a 20, 30 minute, I don't know how long I was there.
Was there anybody else there with you?
No. I did the straight pull in. I mean, I'm EV80 kid all the way, but I knew nobody was there, and if somebody came, I would have moved immediately.
You stole my line.
I'd be.
Were you EV80 kid?
I would be running. I'd be running outside to get out of the way, but I decided, let me go ahead and end my GPS and restart it. You did the same.
Well, I shut it off, and it ended.
And then because I had gained a little bit of charge, it had decided, okay, you can make it to your destination without a charge. I just stayed till it said 15%. I arrived here with 32. So have you had that same experience, really conservative estimates on Google? How wrong is it to the good?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because it would hover between 9%, 12%. And of course, if it went to 9 or 10%, it was red. It didn't like that.
Yeah, right. The red, they always scare you with the colors.
Yeah. So then I arrived, and it was 18%.
Okay, so 10% usually is like the swing, right? 8, 9, 10%.
About 10%.
So mine has been the same, and usually mine is more because what was your average speed, would you say, here?
Speed plus 5.
Okay, so whatever the speed limit was you did
plus
5 over.
Correct.
So the weather is playing more of a role than the speed today because I did 55 miles per hour the entire way on the interstate. You may think I'm nuts, but I don't have a lot of traffic where I am. There is always a lane to pass, pretty much, and I did 55 the whole way. What was your efficiency when you got here? Do you remember?
2.2.
I was 2.3. So that you did 5 over, I did 55, and we ended up with 1/10 of a mile per kilowatt hour difference.
Yeah.
That's the lowest efficiency I've ever gotten in the Polo, period, on a trip. So
I haven't dropped below 2.
Ever, right?
Ever.
So I was 1.4 when I got to Friendsville, which is...
That's horrible.
When the sun came out and it started getting brighter, that's when my efficiency really started to make a bump because the cabin was getting the UV ray, it was heating up. Now that we made it here, this was the biggest test. A lot of the Prologue ownership comments right now are regarding winter charging speeds. In fact, we had a guy in an EX90 come up to us at the supercharger and ask, hey, why am I charging so slow? I said, well, how far did you drive? He said 15 miles. I'm like, well, that's strike one. Because the fewer miles you've driven, the colder your battery is likely to be. Second is fast charge prep, which is different than preconditioning. Preconditioning, in terms of the Prologue, refers to cabin.
Correct.
But preconditioning in terms of a Tesla or in the thought of EVs typically talks about battery temperature. So it's a little confusing. The actual term in the charging menu, which is charging settings, fast charge prep, right?
Start.
So Tony and I talked about this yesterday while we were preparing for this, and I thought, you know what? Why don't you press fast charge prep?
And I won't.
And I only charged to 50% because I feel like that number, wherever you're at 50, is going to give you a really good window as to what that charging session overall looked like. When I plugged in my Prologue, went to 80 kilowatts for a round, and then immediately started to ramp down. And I kind of froze at 60 all the way through, and I ended at 55 kilowatts or 54 kilowatts at 50%. That was no fast charge prep. That means cold battery. And I believe that the car can precondition if it's been told where it's going because of Google Maps.
But because I was going at a...
Yeah, because you're coming to a supercharger, remember, we're not supposed to have access. And I have a video on that. You can check it out. I'm sure if you're here, you've probably already seen it. But because we don't have official access, Google Maps can't precondition. Peak speed was 80. 50%, I was 54. You hit fast charge prep. Tell me the difference. Same charger. Tony is in the pull-in. We were able to pull in. He is hanging over just a little bit, but he didn't have to do any shenanigans to get pulled in here, and he's not blocking anybody else. And the best news is 153 from the cabinet.
So same SoC, and world's different. It held almost over 100 to about 75%, and then it started really walking down, I think.
And you went to 80, right?
I went to 80.
So from 32 to 80,
27
you were
minutes.
only under 100 for 5%.
Correct.
And you started at 150. That is the typical Honda Prologue charge curve at a Tesla supercharger. I can show you a very similar experience I did during my efficiency experiment. Data gathered here will be extremely important. I'm trying to get a standardized charging session to use as a repeatable result that will be the cornerstone of this efficiency research. Will it be a power taper? Will we reach 80% or will it be 30 minutes? Turns out it's the latter. So because you hit fast charge prep, it completely eliminated the variable of temperature.
Correct, because it was 16 degrees when we arrived.
Okay, and how long before you got to the charger did you press it?
So I had done it an hour before. So let me preface this. So I was an hour out from the Emmitsburg charger, and I hit it.
Okay.
As soon as once I turned it off and was doing my charging and all that, it obviously stopped.
Okay.
But then because I was 42 minutes away, I went through before I even left and pressed it again.
Okay, so you unplugged at Emmitsburg.
Right.
And pressed it again and then drove to the supercharger.
Yeah. I just didn't want to play games with it.
Now, the other thing, too, is that if we walked in here with the same efficiency, he was 2.2, I was 2.3, but was able to charge almost exactly twice as fast. I was 80 when I started. You were 153, 154. At 50%, I'm at 54. You're at 100, right? Or 104.
Almost double.
Yeah, so in the event you are traveling and you are doing fast charging and you want to use the supercharger network, that fast charge prep is going to come in very handy. And the fact that it has that as a manual option is excellent. Teslas do not. There is no manual anything. Right. You have to use the supercharger network to precondition. And if you want to precondition otherwise, you have to pretend you're going to a supercharger and then plug into something else.
Oh, wow.
So you would have to have a supercharger near the other charger you were choosing in order to have the car fast charge prep.
Say you're going there and then not go there.
Right. If I'm going to Columbus, I'm going to navigate to the Columbus supercharger and then plug into this EVgo.
While it's nice to have that manual precondition, what I don't like is that you have to go 4 clicks to get there. So, charging, settings, fast charge prep. So there's your 3rd click.
And then
you have to click start before, or you don't get it.
Wow.
So
4 clicks.
And if you're driving, and you're trying to do this, I have to reach the settings is over all in the corner. It should be it should be either fast charge prep or I don't care what they call it, but it should be a button that you can put on the front screen.
What's your ideal location? Is this in the maps? Should it be in the Google Maps?
Either in the Google Maps or right in, like, you know how you can go to charging or whatever from the home screen, on the home screen, basically.
Another, and this is just another, and because we're doing feedback here. We're in feedback mode.
Yeah.
What about a custom button on the steering wheel? The steering wheel just had one customizable button. Because I will say, the UI is fairly customizable. That left-hand square.
Yeah.
On the, if you just use the default display option.
Right.
The left-hand square can be almost anything. Tire pressure, efficiency, all kinds of different things in the menu. And if we
fast
had one,
prep would be good.
We had one customizable button on the steering wheel to where we could make it fast charge prep, garage door opening, whatever else you want to do. Headlights, maybe even headlights. Then that would be really cool. Talk to me about Prologue problems. First of all, I've had, other than the Honda Link app, which I think everyone, have you had problems with the Honda Link app?
So I did take a shot, and I'll send it to you. Only one time. It was right after you had done that. I was going into it, and it was a blank screen.
That's how mine is. Mine is constantly, permanently blank.
It's not anymore. It caught itself up.
It caught itself up. So mine is not. Today I tried 3 times to send the command to precondition. I walked down to the basement.
I think it might be his phone.
It did with.
I think he needs to fix his phone.
All right, I need to reboot. Reboot.
You need to get 16 Pro.
This will be Adam's Everything EV reboot.
The one thing I will say, and I think the Prologue community will agree, it's slow. It's almost as slow as Fisker's was. I'm standing in front of the car, and it's like, I'll think about it. As far as actual issues,
Yeah.
I even had it coming out of the after the first charge. When I was making a right turn, and it made that clunk, 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 clunk. So I don't know if it's the cold, if it's the joints, they're just not right.
Is it a regular problem, or was it just one time?
Well, it's been pretty much regular.
Okay.
Like, not every single time, but it definitely is doing it more. As I make a left turn is when I really notice it. Today was the first time I noticed it on a right turn.
So it is now moved to both sides.
Right.
Okay. So and just to clarify, this is the CV clicking.
Yeah.
Right.
I have not been to the dealership. I do have to call those guys just to get it in there for a check and make sure maybe they know something. Plus, I want to see if there's any updates. It's not over the air update.
Well, there's no OTA on the Prologue,
which I wish it was.
Oh yeah.
So there's been a couple of small minor issues, but the clicking is definitely the biggest thing that I've noticed.
So explain to me, because I haven't. Now remember, I'm not a good example because I am so delicate with this car. If you look at it right now, I drove it so delicately here in the middle of the winter, it still looks like I didn't drive it yet. Talk to me about what you have to do to get it to do the clicking.
Now, it does seem to be at the end of the turn, so as far as I can tell.
So you're all the way locked, right?
Yeah, it seems like that's what it is.
So if I was to come up with a theory, it's because the full lock is too far.
Probably.
Others are saying hard acceleration causes it. Have you experienced that?
I've not at hard acceleration.
Normal operation, you're not turning hard. When I say hard, I mean angle. I'm talking about steep angle. Any disruption there, or just when you turn?
Just when I turn.
Okay. Let me know your problems down below. What else do you want to talk about? How does the wife drive it? Does she like driving it?
So she drives it 3 times a week.
Wow.
We let our daughter take the Buick.
Okay.
Senior year, kind of senior privilege. And Dad gets stuck at home. I work from home anyway.
Nice.
Except for a couple days a week, and that's the day that I would take it. And which is I charge a charge point at work, which charges at the Fisker rate.
Okay.
6 kilowatts. But it's free.
Yeah. So you have free charging at your job.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's at home. And I just signed up for terms of use with Pico Energy.
Does it change the rate?
Yes.
So your actual regular rate is higher or no?
Higher.
So your regular rate's higher, and then your
off-peak is 6 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Okay.
Super off-peak is midnight to 6 a.m.
6 a.m. to midnight, is it free?
It's not free. It's 4 cents.
It's 4 cents.
4 cents per kilowatt hour. I think that's what it was. And then like 6 or 8 cents for the off-peak, and then 28 cents for on-peak.
So I pay 13 all day, every day, all day long. We burn coal. Not good. My funny aside, my cousin just got a Model Y. I converted him to electric. He did go with the Tesla, but he put a Friends of Coal license plate. If you don't know about Friends of Coal, let somebody can tell you in the comments. But so he has a Friends of Coal. I said, listen, you're in the coal mining industry, and your vehicle runs on coal. He loved it. If you were recommending this car, especially at the prices right now, because we're looking at the leases are around 300, and they go lower per month. Would you recommend this car after 6 months?
I still would. It's that Honda enthusiast, that you're going to put that up there again. Anyway, but so I think Honda owners are going to want it because they want to stay with a Honda, even though it's technically not. It's fine.
You have a relationship with your
dealership. I think anybody first EV, right? That's really who this is geared towards.
Okay.
So that when and if they do come out with their true EV,
Honda Zero Series, yes or no on the looks of them?
Saloon, might be a little too. I mean, it's cool.
It'll be expensive. It'll be
Oh, yeah.
it'll be $80,000.
Well, the one that they showed was the executive package.
Right, yeah.
So that's the, 80, 90,000.
Yeah, it'll be, and it's like, because I know the Sony and Honda collab. Have you seen that thing?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard it.
It's like 85,000 starting price too.
Right.
I think the Honda Zero will either be the same architecture or very similar, if they build either one. We don't know yet. Remember, concept cars are exactly that. The SUV, too boxy.
I don't think it's too boxy, but the video I did see of it, I would agree. It looks like, I feel like I have more room in this.
Oh, this is a way bigger car.
Yeah, but even so, even if it were CRV size,
Yeah.
right? The CRV's decent. I mean, for its size.
60 cubic feet of space. I'm going to get a 0 Series, whatever the first one is, if it's not the saloon only for 80. But I will get the SUV if it's reasonably priced. And just to see, I'm a Honda guy. I have the same loyalty you do if you're watching, and you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I definitely am interested just to know. Let's break some news. Reuters article yesterday. Honda is now reconsidering building an EV totally at all because of the political climate.
My gut reaction is, I think they're all still secretly doing them, or not secretly doing them. And I just don't think it's all true. I'm trying to talk my wife into a Polestar 3.
Polestar 3
lease.
Okay, so like what are those, $600-700 a month, something like that? That range?
Roughly for the lease, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So
that is
if I can get a better lease,
that is an entirely massive chunk of vehicle for the money.
Yeah.
If you just compare monthly payment to what you get, that Polestar 3 has a lot of cool.
And it's supposed to be even better in the snow and ice.
It
got rated #1.
It's an EX90 with the third row removed. It's a really nice car. Let me know how that goes. For me, I have 7,000 miles on mine, 7,200 probably now that I'm here, and I will rotate the tires at 7,500. I have done nothing to the car. Also, you've done nothing.
Same thing, yeah. And I'll probably do the same rotation. I might contact them just to make sure nothing goopy's going on.
Okay.
Because remember, you and I got the early, like, hot off the press.
So my opinion of that is that we were lucky, and they had a smaller parts order. They weren't in as big of a hurry, and so I think that may have helped us.
Okay.
Because there are other problems. The tailgate problem. People are having their tailgates open.
It still does it because I pull into my garage, and when I pull the cord around, you got that light that's underneath. I pull the cord underneath, and it goes, "Hey, I'm going to open." You got somebody kicking underneath it.
Okay.
So I'm like, that's not good.
That's in the menu. You can turn that off. In fact, mine defaulted to off. I had to go in to turn it on.
But I like the kick.
Right. Well, so that, and there's the catch-22 is, and I feel the same way about the reverse. Right. The slam.
Oh, yeah.
We all experience that if we own these cars.
And it's reported.
You can go into the menu and you can turn that off. But I almost feel like I can't do it because the time I need it will be the time I turn it off.
Here's what we do. And my wife discovered this. You just go to that, where it gives you the choices across, and then you just push that off, and it's only for that instance.
Oh, okay.
So when you turn it back on, it's back on.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
So I do it for getting out of the garage, and then when I go forward, it's fine, because the next time I turn it off, it'll be fine.
And your recommendation is still a thumbs up?
So I still think it's worth it, honestly.
In my opinion, obviously my opinion is slathered everywhere all the time. I still would, first EV owner, give this one a chance because you get a lot for the money.
Yeah.
And let's go talk some charging.
Okay, as we saw, you pay by card. So I'm going to do that real quick, and then I'll get the charging. First, I have to select my charger, 4B, and it puts $50 on automatically. I just have to plug it in. All right, charging session is starting. A minute, I think. There we go. So we're at 18%. It should take a minute to ramp up. So very convenient. There's 10 total with 4 NACs and 6 of the CCS. Let's take a look at the curve. So you can see we went up to a peak of about 155. We're currently at 104 that's being delivered to the car. And you can see all the details here. And you can go back. If we go back into charging detail, we're still over 100. at 63%.
And here's a look at Tony's final numbers. Now, the 60 kilowatt hours is deceiving because that is the energy delivered, not the energy into the battery. There are losses and other vehicle functions that are being powered by this DC input. 20 to 80% on the Prologue is 60% of the battery, or 51 kilowatt hours. More on that in a minute. But the impressive part here is that we ended at 82 kilowatts. This is as close to 20 to 80 in the real world as you're going to get, and a 79% shutoff is 80% inside the Prologue. I can prove that in just a second from a different session, and it all happened in 32 minutes, which is as fast as this Prologue will ever go. How long does it take to get from 20 to 80% at the Tesla Supercharger? This is a complex question, and the wintertime makes it all the more complex. In my Everything Explained video, I showed you how pack voltage affects charge speed with my slow res chart. In my numbers video, I showed you how obsessive you can get with route planning and how much range you get at 70 miles per hour, which is around 225. In my highway efficiency test, I showed you how speed affects your range and got a really good charging session in at the supercharger. And then there was my charging video, where I showed you how to set up supercharging, which adapter to get, which superchargers you can use, how to find them, and why you can't use the native Google Maps to route plan with them yet, as well as how I actually plan a road trip, the non-obsessive version, how to use PlugShare, how to price shop DC charging, how to avoid sitting in line at a charger, what EV80Kit is, and much more. One of those guidelines is a real deep dive if you want it to be. It's kind of the calculus of charging, and that's Mind Your Curve. I've mentioned this before, but if you've watched all those previous videos I just referenced, we can go a little deeper now. And thanks to Tony taking advantage of the road trip we did to get a good charging session in at Iona, I can now show you the holy grail of charging performance at all the most popular stops for the Honda Prologue.
That's a real car.
And I didn't go low res with the chart, I just went really simple. In fact, this is probably the precipice of my knowledge of spreadsheets. If I didn't do well in a college class, it was probably because of Excel. EVgo Delta 100, you're looking at a max of 62 kilowatts. The limitation here is the 200 amp cable. Average speed is 57 to 60 kilowatts. The 20 to 80% is 48 minutes. The 30-minute expectations are about 32 to 35%. And my recommendation is one of three, which is 15% to your next destination. What does that mean? It means when you get there, just charge as much as you need to get to your next place. The Delta 100 is slow, but not slow enough for you to just park there and walk away, so get to a state of charge where you'll make it to your next destination and just get out of there. It'll make more sense in a minute. How about a 350 EVgo? Now, there are some different versions of this, but essentially that's the actual 350 branded EVgo charger. It's also your Pilot Flying J and your GM branded chargers. These are all 350 kilowatt max. The max speed on the Prologue is going to be 155 kilowatts. There are no limitations as far as the speed or the output here. In fact, there's an optimization with the AutoCharge Plus and the relationship with GM and EVgo. The average speed you're going to get at an EVgo 350 is around 100 kilowatts and up to 105 depending on where you plugged in. As far as state of charge, 20 to 80% is going to run you 32 minutes, which is, I believe, what you get when you type in how fast does the Honda Prologue charge from 20 to 80% into Google. I wanted to leave myself getting this wrong in the video because I could have sworn it took me less than 35 minutes multiple times, and I was right. This is a session at a supercharger where I put 60% back in the battery in just 30 minutes, and that's when I remembered. 30 minutes was the other guideline that I forgot to put in this chart. 30 minutes, 80%, or whenever the taper happens, whichever comes first. And I got to 30 minutes first. So at 30 minutes, I stopped and I got out of there. And my goal on this channel is entertainment and education. So let's be entertained by the fact that I should have put this rule in with my original rules in the first place. 80 kilowatts, 80%, or 30 minutes. There, that's better. What can you expect to add during 30 minutes? Well, around 55%, which kind of goes along with the 20 to 80% since they're so close. And what's my recommendation? Well, that's 80 kilowatts, 80%, or 30 minutes. Easy to remember, right? Just goes right along with EV80Kit. In fact, it's the reason why EV80Kit is named EV80Kit, because 80% is typically where every type of EV drops off as far as charging speed. And if it's a DC fast charger, and you're there because you want to charge fast, Charging above 80 doesn't make any sense at all. And if you adjust your slider during a charging session at a DC cabinet, you get this message: fast charging slows as the battery fills. Charging will be slower above 80%. This is Tony's data from his Iona session. Max speed 155. All the Iona outputs are max. The average speed, however, even with really cold temperatures, was 113 kilowatts for Tony's session, which is basically the best. More on that in a minute. 20 to 80%, once again, 32 minutes. It may be less, it may be more, but your expectation for 20 to 80 should be around 32 minutes. Once again, 30-minute expectations, 55%, and it's 80 kilowatts, 80%, or 30 minutes for my recommendation. Next, we have ChargePoint 62 kilowatt. These are very common throughout the country, and they're extremely common where I live. In fact, Western Maryland, it's all there is. 62 kilowatt max. Once again, that's a 200 amp cable. 200 amps times 288 volts is 57 kilowatts, but as you get closer to 80, your voltage is higher, so 62 is the max. Your average speed is once again going to be between 57 and 60 kilowatts. 20 to 80, again, 48 minutes. 30-minute expectations, 30-some%. Recommendation, once again, get out of there as soon as you're 15% for wherever your next destination is. Or you can follow the instructions from your GPS, that's okay too, but you're not optimized here. In fact, you're just over half as fast as you could be going. More on that in a second. ChargePoint 120 kilowatt. Because these also have 200 amp cables, they're going to be the same as the 62 kilowatt. 62 kilowatt max, 200 amp cable, 57 to 60 kilowatts, 48 minutes, 20 to 80, about 30% during 30 minutes, and get out of there as soon as you can. ChargePoint also makes a 320 kilowatt cabinet, and Tony got a chance to charge at one of these, so I was able to use his data, which is the same as the other 350s, 155 kilowatt max. There's no limitations. Average speeds around 100 kilowatts, 20 to 80s, 32 minutes, 55% during a 30-minute charge, and 80-80 or 30 minutes, and then get out of there. Then we get to Electrify America. And the Honda Prologue, in my opinion, is not optimized for Electrify America, but Electrify America does have pretty good outputs. So the Electrify America 150 is 100 kilowatt max, and that's because it has a 350 amp service. Now, it could go over that a little bit, it may be a little under, but 350 amps is about what you're getting. 350 times 288, that's 100 kilowatts. But the thing is, that Electrify America cabinet is going to output that for a pretty good period of time. You're looking at a very consistent charge curve, basically from the time you show up until you get to 80%. So once again, 90 to 100 kilowatt average speed, 35 minutes, 20 to 80. What's a 30-minute expectation? Somewhere around 45% instead of 55. Once again, not a big difference. And I have the same recommendation for an EA150 as all these other 350 cabinets because of the limitations of the Prologue due to its voltage. And then we get to a 350 kilowatt EA cabinet. And when I say not optimized, this is kind of what I'm talking about. When I went to a 350 EA, I got extremely blazing speeds for a short period of time, from the teens to the low 60s in 23 minutes. And that was awesome. You got the same max rate, that's 155 kilowatts. But the limitations is, Electrify America is pumping more into the Prologue than I think it can handle. At least that's my hunch. The average speed here is going to be the best out of all the cabinets. And that's because the data set I have is incomplete. I don't have a full 20 to 80% session, but the session I did have was blazing fast until I unplugged. And that's why we want to learn to leave when it derates. 20 to 80%, well, could be that 32 minutes, but it might be as many as 40 if the cabinet decides to derate you before you get close, which is exactly what happened to me. So your 30-minute expectation is 50 to 55%. So when do you leave? My derate was so aggressive, it went to the 30s as far as speed. It wasn't cold out. I hadn't been traveling a long time. And so the Prologue probably just decided, hey, you've pushed too much in. This is all we can take at this kind of rate. We have to really knock it back down because of temperature restrictions. Does that mean you might get a really good charging session in the wintertime? Maybe. In fact, let's pause right there and find out. Hey Google, navigate to Sheets, Belle Vernon, PA.
Sure, Sheets.
So if you know anything about this area, you'll know that Route 43 is an extremely lonely road, and there's nobody on this little section. So what I'm going to do is loop this section until it tells me 20% arrival in Belle Vernon. We've done many loops on 43, and now it says 27% arrival in Belle Vernon. But I've got some work to do. I got to go to charging, settings, fast charge prep. I'm 40 miles away right now. I'm going to hit start. Get ready for fast charging. You can plug in at any time. We're good to go. Several shenanigans later, here we are, 20% arrival.
at the Bedford Charger. 113 miles, 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour on the trip. Normally I get around 3.4, especially at the speeds that I've been doing. It's probably because of the cold. If we look back here, 18% of my energy was climate control. So on the way back, I'm going to turn off the climate control the whole way, and we'll get that measurement. Now, it won't be as much distance because I had to do all those loops, but we will get a nice comparison. Right now it is 19 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's go charge. I'm just waiting for it to say 20%. I'm just refreshing the Honda Link app until it says I have 20%. The only other way to find out is to turn it off. And I've got the climate set at 70 on auto. That's what I've had it on the entire time. And I did put my heated seat at 1. Now remember, 40 minutes ago I hit fast charge prep. I'm going to press it again. I definitely think the fast charge prep is doing something, because right now, just idling here, I'm going at 6 kilowatts. All right, bingo. The app hit 20. Let's go ahead and plug in. 1, 2. Charger 2. Plug in first. All right, let's go. Whew. Man, these cables are tough when it's cold. Initiating charging. Looks like it's going.
It did take a second to ramp up, but went straight to near peak speeds once it did. After about 2 minutes, it cut the speed in half, followed by what looked to me like some negotiation. Here's 10 minutes, already up 22 plus kilowatt hours to over 40%, and 50% came after 15 minutes. At 20 minutes, the Prologue was at 59%. Still charging at over 100 kilowatts, 67% came at 25 minutes, and if we were going to follow the 80 kilowatt, 80% 30-minute rule, 30 minutes came first with a 74% state of charge, and happily, 80 kilowatts and 80% happened within the same minute, meaning the Prologue held a charge speed above 80 kilowatts for almost the entire session. I also beat Honda's own rating by 2 minutes, with a 33-minute finish to 80% and an average speed of 92.7 kilowatts. However, if we followed my recommendation for optimal charging and unplugged at 30 minutes, because it came first, we would have averaged 93.5 kilowatts. And the closer those numbers are, the better the charging session. So even with this beast of a session, it did still pay to follow the recommendation.
Whichever comes first, 80, 80, 30 minutes. Let's drive home with no climate. Climate off. Seat heater will stay on. Let's see what the efficiency will be. We'll just go ahead and reset trip 2. All right, I'm just short of halfway home here, cruising through Uniontown, Pennsylvania right now. And it's cold in here. It feels definitely cold. Like I said, it's 19 Fahrenheit right now. My seat heater is on 1 bar, but the rest of the climate's off. Look at that. 3.2 miles per kilowatt hour. Pulling into the garage, my climate percentage has gone from 18 down to 14, and my efficiency is now 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour. And what did I get during the trip total? There it is. 51 miles, 3.2 miles per kilowatt hour with just the one heated seat. So turn off the climate if you need more range.
And that means we have another adjustment to make. I'm pretty confident that 100 to 105 that the other 350s do is what you can expect with Electrify America, just a little less consistent. And then finally, you're looking at the Tesla Supercharger. These are important because they're everywhere. If I want to go to Roanoke in a better route planner and I want to get there as fast as possible, it's going to tell me to use 2 Tesla Superchargers. That's it. And if I say that I don't want to charge to 100% right beside my house or 90% 30 miles from my house, well, then I'm charging at a network I've never heard of, I might not have an app for, or may not be operational. I've actually charged at this one before, but I've charged at almost every charger in West Virginia. It's not that hard. So the Supercharger is really important because usually when you're using these, it's because you need to. Max output, 155 kilowatt. There's no limitation here. The average speed can really vary. I've seen a lot of different people have a lot of different data and experiences, but between 100 and 115 is going to be your average speed. And if you look at this again, 113 for Iona and then 114 for the Supercharger. It's going to give you 20 to 80 in that same 32 minutes. You can expect 52 to 57% during a 30-minute session. And once again, you're optimized. So 80 kilowatts, 80%, 30 minutes, whatever makes sense for you.
You may be asking yourself, why does all this matter? Can't I just do what the GPS says? Of course, but if you are late and you have a long trip and you need to make the best possible time, this chart is how you make the best possible time. Know what charger you're pulling into, know what the performance is going to be when you plug into it, and decide when to unplug based on that performance. It's not the best, it's not the easiest, it's not the cheapest, it's not the most fun for your family. It's the fastest way to charge. So, how long does it take to charge? Well, if you follow these rules, the answer you can give somebody is, I never stay at a charger longer than 30 minutes. You don't need to. I noticed you commented on every comment so far, so I thought I would ask if you would write a haiku poem about the Prologue. Better looking style, GM helps Honda's future, the Prologue starts it. Let me know your 0 to 10 score in the comments. Good evening, I just bought a Prologue and so far I'm loving it. First EV, and as I await for my home system to be set up, what do you recommend for a portable charger? Best Buy sells Electron Level 1 charger. It's reliable and cheap. If you're looking for a Level 2, I would get a Tesla mobile connector and Electron Tesla to J1772 adapter. This combination would allow you to have every type of possible connection, and it's good future proofing. Let me show you what I mean. First, you grab a Tesla mobile connector. That's Level 1 and Level 2 1450, as well as a carrying case, and they're super reliable. 275 might seem a little steep, but the advantages are kind of endless. The next product to buy would be the adapter bundle. You get 1030, 1430, 650, 1450, and more. But you're not done yet because now you have to connect them to your J1772 outlet, which is not the Tesla connector that the mobile connector comes with, which means it would be time to get the Electron J1772 Tesla adapter. Now at this point, you've spent about $650 on a mobile setup, but you have completely future-proofed all of your charging for good. Stow it away under the floor of the trunk in the Prologue, and no matter what situation you're in, if there's a plug, you can charge. And if you like the mobile connector setup from Tesla, Electron has a very similar product now that is also Level 1 and Level 2. And it's about the same price. Also with home charging, great introduction, why did you set it at 75? My setting is 75%. You can set this to whatever you want. I don't recommend going over 80 in this car ever for any reason. Sometimes when I set it to 75, I'll go into the garage after my session is complete and it'll be at 77, let's say. This is from pack balancing, which is where the battery management system, or the computer connected to your battery, actively works to balance the voltage in each pack, which could yield a net result of total voltage higher than 75%. At 75, I've got a buffer to make sure I never go over 80, even in the event of a pack balance that results in an overage. And why do I keep droning on about stay below 80, stay below 80? Well, Mercedes-Benz EQB recalled due to potential battery fire. What happens when this happens? It's not common, but once in a while, there's a battery manufacturing problem. And is there a big risk for you if one of these recalls were to happen to a vehicle you own? Let's see what they suggest you do if you have one of these 7,300 Mercedes EQBs. Owners of vehicles manufactured before that date must take them to the dealerships where updated battery management software will be installed free of charge. Does that remind you of something? Possibly the Chevy Bolt recall, where it was all software until it wasn't. Either way, the exact same recommendation is made here, not to charge beyond 80%. And the Prologue was a new vehicle in 2024, which means we have new examples of them. And if there ends up being a battery problem with the Prologue, what are they going to tell us to do? Exactly what I'm suggesting you already do anyway. And what if you don't, and there is a problem? Then you get to be one of the fires instead of one of the software updates. Love your videos on the Prologue. I'm seriously considering buying one, but my dilemma is I drive for Uber and Lyft as my main job. I travel about 100 miles or so a day. I live in Palm Springs, California, where it gets extremely hot. We have several months of temps that range from 105 to 115, sometimes higher, and it really doesn't cool down at night below 100 very often. Would you recommend this car for someone like me who drives a lot of miles in hot weather? I've heard that extreme hot weather can shorten battery life. I just don't want to make a huge mistake. I drive a Honda Accord Hybrid now. I just want something bigger like the Prologue. Thanks for any insight you can give. I love this car, but I don't live in your climate. The best way for you to figure out if people are putting their trust in this car in your local area is to go to your local dealership and see how many they have on the lot. Honda only sends cars to dealerships that sell them. You can't find a Prologue in my area because we live in an EV desert. Battery degradation can be higher in warmer climates, but you're going to get that with every EV. My recommendation in a warm climate is to never charge above 80% for any reason. Heat plus 100% equals failure. It's simple chemistry with these batteries. I would worry more about the charging infrastructure structure than the Heat because at the end of the day, you've got the warranty on your side. And if there's a problem, Honda will likely throw you a loaner. People have had problems with this car. This is a new platform and new architecture, so anytime you have that, there are going to be growing pains. I think you should know that this is not a Honda. It doesn't drive like a Honda, it doesn't handle like a Honda, and if you push it like it's a Honda, it will fall apart like a GM. On the other side of that coin, a good deal is hard to pass up. I hope this helps. Good luck in your search.
Adam, can you put up a review on level 2 charging extension cables for those who need extra length to run from our home charger or family member's charger? I typed in 1450 extension cable on Amazon. This one came up first. RV Guard 50 amp, 15 foot RV EV extension cord.
Everything looks good here except there's no cable size. 8.3, 6.3, 8.1. These are gauge measurements for the actual copper wire inside, and that's really important. If we scroll down, 6.3 plus 8.1 with an STW jacket. So it's weatherproof, and it looks like 6 and change kilowatts at 125 volt and 12.5 kilowatts at 240 volt. That also seems okay, but what exactly are we plugging into?
Here's somebody using a $9 1450 plug and a 50 amp breaker. I mean, it says 50, but where's the 80% rule? And it's way more complex than that even. Now we're talking about temperature ratings, wire gauge sizes, circuit breaker currents. Are you familiar with all this? And here's the problem with the Prologue. There's no way to adjust the amperage. In fact, there's no way to find out the amperage. On a level 1 charger, the Honda Link app will show you amps and volts. But at level 2, when amps are the most important, because that's when they would be variable, they only show volts. And while you can change the amperage for level 1, you can't make an adjustment for level 2. There's no option. But in my wife's Tesla, I don't even need to go near the car. I can just go straight to the app and derate the amperage right there. And then I'll know I'm nowhere near the threshold of the breaker, the Romex, the extension cord, or the EVSE I'm using. EVSE is actually electric vehicle supply equipment. We don't actually call these chargers because the charger is actually under the hood of the Prologue, but I won't boggle your mind any further in this video. You can Google that. The long and short of it is this. You don't know what you're plugging into when you use a 1450 extension cord. So if you've got a long journey for your electricity between the plug and the car, my suggestion is to stick with level 1. You can go to any Harbor Freight, grab a 10.3 Romex like this one, and rest assured that the risk of a problem is extremely low. Plug in the wrong extension cord into the wrong 1450 outlet, and something might melt, or worse. And in the event you have to use level 2, just make sure you find the highest rated wattage you possibly can, and verify that the 1450 plug is professionally installed and up to code. If you bought a Prologue, there's a decent chance you might be a first-time EV owner. And if you are, there's a lot to know about early adoption. Now, the Prologue is probably one of the first models from a manufacturer that isn't an early adopter type of vehicle, but at the same time, it's still a first car from a new company that's doing EVs for the first time, which early adopters know, but you're going to find out means there's going to be some growing pains. And I know a lot of you join forums because you are first-time EV owners and you just want to know how it's going. But I want you to know that a lot of those forums have a lot of people in there that have different intentions than you. They may not be Prologue owners. They may be Honda dealership employees. They may be Honda corporate. That entire forum could be owned by a dealership conglomerate. So just make sure before you ask a question in a forum or believe answers that are already there that you never know what the context is regarding that answer. So if I just put together... Oh, hello there. You might be wondering, this channel's not very big, but there's a lot of videos on it. Why such a small following? Well, I'm not a huge fan of massive anxiety. In fact, I think I majored in that in my 20s and I'm kind of over it. So I don't have a massive team or a massive social media presence or try to push my videos out to people. All I really have is you, the viewer. If this is good enough or helpful enough or you think other people might benefit from it, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, maybe hit share. In fact, those shares basically mean everything to me and keep me going. Also, Patreon, YouTube member. So if you think the information you're getting here on the channel is helpful and entertaining even, boy, that's a stretch. But if you feel that way, hit the buttons that are appropriate and thanks in advance. And as a bonus, here's a push-in of me on the least aesthetically pleasing frame. Thanks again. I did a list of good and bads for my All Things Prologue video. Now it's time for the verdict. And we'll go right back to that list to break it down. I appreciate the blind spot monitoring, but I really miss the auto-dimming rear view mirrors. Let's pause this for a second. I think I can make this easier. How about benefits and room for improvement? And maybe I'll make the font a little bigger. Let's try that. The great turning radius is overshadowed a bit by the CV joints that click when you take advantage of it. I'm really satisfied with the adaptive cruise, but of course, the lane keep assist is meh. Especially if you're a Honda person, it's not the Honda Sensing Suite at all. But I'll sacrifice the absence of good lane keep assist for the fact that we have no camera inside this 2024 tech-forward vehicle. I'm really glad there's no computer telling me how much attention I'm paying right now, or yelling at me when I'm just in the infotainment trying to press fast charge prep. Wireless CarPlay, in my opinion, is an absolute necessity with this infotainment, and I love it. But the Honda Link sucks. The setup, the performance, the reliability, all subpar. One-pedal driving is great. The traction control is really good. I proved that with all-season tires in the snow. Google Maps is excellent. The range estimates are conservative as far as battery percentage, but the system itself is customizable enough for me to get what I need. Hey Google, open off-road app.
Opening off-road.
Alright, so you got Baja, terrain, and overlanding. Doesn't look like I can make any changes, but it does show elevation. That's really nice to see. It's got your tire pressure, pitch and roll, your G-force, and your steering angle. And this blurred out part is your exact GPS location, hence the blur. Hey Google, enable fart mode.
Happy to oblige.
The ultrasonic sensors are fairly accurate for all the pedestrian and obstacle warnings, and the nightmare that is the auto-reverse auto-braking has gotten me to utter the loudest scream I've ever uttered in my adult life. In fact, it's probably guilty of the second most as well. But I really love the fact that my road trips have been basically free since I got the car with the $750 EVgo credit. Unless I'm testing an adapter or a charge curve at the supercharger, I haven't had to pay for any charging on long trips. And I love the Auto Charge Plus as well as the ability to use ChargePoint in the EVgo app to take advantage of my credits. And if the Honda Prologue is your first EV and you don't have level 2 at home, you don't have to go with the Honda promotion as far as getting that level 2 installed. In fact, you have many more choices like this Emporia if you don't. You want to save money on road trips? Take the $750. When does an automaker give you free gas? And finally, on that point, I've done all my charging with level 1. So if you don't drive a lot, or you have a short commute, you can usually make it through the week just on level 1. For design, I found that the Honda Prologue is not popular with other Honda owners, maybe because they know it's an imposter, or maybe because it's a little better looking than what they're driving, but it's really popular with other folks. And if you do catch somebody looking, it's probably the noise. You know, the one that goes away over 24 miles per hour. But for every one of those, there are 99 people who pay no attention to it at all. And that's my favorite part. My last EV got bad attention, mostly. Like this. Or this. Or this. I myself, being an experienced EV owner, I love the fact that the Prologue isn't fast. I don't try to punch it. Ever. I've never floored the accelerator. I don't even know what that's like. It's an EV the way EVs are supposed to be, in my opinion. In a recent video, I showed my lifetime trip meter, which even after this winter is at 3.7 miles per kilowatt hour. So it's a massive vehicle that can be driven efficiently. But as you can see, you may not feel that way about power, so I put not powerful as a room for improvement as well. Also, none of the lo-fi tech stuff really bothers me. Am I interested in tech? Yes. Do I enjoy tech? Absolutely. Do I miss Century Mode, or the live view from the app, or the 100% reliable app? Yes, I do sometimes. I really appreciate a good phone conversation. And I appreciate a good in-person conversation even more. And if I can press no buttons at all except maybe up and down on the volume and next track and previous track, then that combination of pressing nothing and just messing with my music gives me an opportunity for a good drive. And if a good phone conversation for me is a 7, and a good in-person conversation is an 8, a good drive is a 9. And I find that my best opportunity to get that is in the Honda Prologue. It's quiet, it's roomy, it's well-equipped, it's familiar, and it doesn't beep at me hardly at all. At least once I get out of the driveway.
This is a tight squeeze every time.
I haven't touched the piano black climate control buttons, save for one time this winter when I needed to do a little extra defrost. And I think this is the car for me. But it may not be the car for you, because most of the competition charges faster. If you drive a ton, or you don't want to drive an imposter vehicle, or you're not a Honda person, then a Mach-E might be be really nice. A Hyundai Ioniq 5 has great styling and kind of magic utility for its footprint. And even with everything that's going on right now, whether you like it or not, it's all over the news, the Tesla Model Y is a better car. And now it's even newer and better looking than it was.
Bro, what are you talking about?
Or at least different looking. So if you're searching for perfection, you're not going to find it in a Honda Prologue.
People will buy or lease this because they don't want to be associated with Elon Musk and Tesla.
But if the survey question is old school or new school and you immediately slide towards the old school, this is like the best of both worlds. It feels like a regular car with an electric powertrain. But it's not going to drive like an Accord, or a CR-V for that matter. If my personality when I was 20 was a 1992 Accord EX, and my personality when I was 25 was a 2006 Honda Civic Si, my personality at 43 is a Honda Prologue. And I'm kind of into the GM driving experience. I don't know if you've watched the other videos on the channel I've made recently, but I recently got a Chevy Bolt for my son. These cars are so similar, it's a little bit eerie. Everything from the feel of the one-pedal driving to the infotainment menu, to the CarPlay performance, it's so similar, it's crazy. Except for the suspension. The Bolt is a small vehicle, and the Prologue is excellent over the bumps. A really smooth ride. I've done entire trips with the lane keep assist off because what am I really missing anyway? I don't have any desire to try to outrun anyone because maybe I can't. The adaptive cruise is great. I use it all the time. In fact, I use it on city streets a lot.
I'm that lazy.
And I feel like I'm driving a massive Cadillac the whole time, because I kind of am. So do I recommend you get a Honda Prologue? I'll tell you the same thing I've told many people in the comments. If you can get a good deal, pull the trigger.
Unless you're extremely attached to the Honda brand, or you get a really good deal.
But don't expect perfection. It's the first one, and it's really the only one. It's going to be this weird one-off car that the dealership may have weird problems with as far as servicing it for you. And you're going to have to find the answers to questions you have from people like me, I guess. But if none of those are turnoffs, this is a great vehicle, especially at the deals right now. $35,000 if you're financing, leases under $300 all day long. You can get on the road and go electric and keep that relationship with your Honda dealer until they release an EV. And they're definitely releasing an EV. They just bought a bunch of gigapresses for their US factory. But in this world of uncertainty, I'm pretty certain that I can recommend you a Honda Prologue in 2025. That's all for now. Thanks so much for watching. You can get one of these shirts at my website, ev80kit.com. Thank you so much for those of you who already have. Join Patreon or become a YouTube member for early access to videos. I appreciate your support. It allows me to do this for you. And don't forget to check out my Honda Prologue playlist. Subscribe for more. We'll see you on the next one.
Hey! Smash the like button!
Thank you.